it is easier to be struck by lightning than becoming a top voice.
Well, let's not give away all our sales tactics,
No.
Danny.
I'm happy to share my hot take of the week. I'd rather be a billionaire than being a top voice. Friends of the pod.
Yeah, friends of the pod.
Friends of the pod.
I always wanted to say that.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, lads, we're doing this episode 1 of What Just Happened. So I'm here with my colleagues from Shake, my fellow Shakers, Harry and Danny. Right, why are we doing this? So we're going to review the best, the worst, the weirdest things that we've seen on LinkedIn over the past month. I think we all need a bit of group therapy when it comes to LinkedIn, especially the amount of time we spend on LinkedIn. So therapy is in session. Danny, for those that don't know, you are a bit of a, LinkedIn whisperer. You used to give out top voices for a living. I see on my list here of things we're going to chat about today. Top voices is number 1 on the card.
Great to be here. Can't believe we're finally doing this. I guess if the show flops, we can always blame the algorithm.
I agree.
So
I agree.
pressure, no
100%.
pressure. Right, so I guess we have to speak about the top voices purge, if that even makes sense. Got a bunch of messages this month, voice notes, calls of fellow LinkedIn creators, friends saying their badge got removed. Thankfully, it was the first time I felt, thank God, I'm not on LinkedIn anymore. I don't have to deal with that. But yeah, big one this month was LinkedIn removing a lot of badges from a lot of top voices. So yeah, big topic. I guess per context, LinkedIn has been trying to evolve their top voices program. Since I was there was always discussions about how can we improve the program, which makes sense. But I guess there's a lot of frustration from people, I think naturally, that LinkedIn, there's not proper transparency on how the top voices program works. There's no real guidelines, or it's not always clear why someone has it, why someone has it removed. So naturally there was a lot of backlash. I saw a lot of people complaining, criticizing. So definitely a topic to discuss. Would love to share my own perspective, but did you guys see anything? Did you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for an entire week of the month, we were seeing people sort of coming onto LinkedIn and going, yeah, I still love the platform, but also my top voice is gone, and kind of I got no explanation why, and they've just removed it. Everyone should be thinking about their own audience. So yeah, definitely saw it like across the board. It felt a bit not communicated that well by the sounds of it. But I'd throw it back, right? So the context here is that when you were at LinkedIn...
The context is, even when I joined, the program was evolving consistently. I think back in the day, it was called the influencer program, which started by giving it to people based on who they were as a person, which I think made sense. So if you were a Richard Branson, you automatically got the badge. Then I think it evolved to being more of a meritocracy, which I think was a good move by LinkedIn, meaning one part is who you are, but the other one is what you're doing on the platform. Are you adding value? Are you being consistent? Which I thought it was the right move. But then, and by the way, my team was leading these efforts, and I understand LinkedIn. I defend LinkedIn in the sense that it's a hard balance to manage. And I think LinkedIn, what they've done well is being a bit more exclusive, especially to compare to other platforms, talking about the TikToks, the Instagrams, the X's, where at some point, I think now you can buy the badge, which is pretty insane. LinkedIn is still, the badge means something. But then the editorial team, which I think is where it comes a bit subjective, decides who gets the badge. And the latest that I remember being a part of is based on the type of content you create. Is it aligned with the editorial priorities? But then is where I have my own struggles. What does it mean good content? What does it mean being aligned with editorial priorities? Some cases are very clear. Some cases are not as clear. To give you an example, a friend of mine, Sophie Miller, which I think is a great creator, LinkedIn native, has been sharing LinkedIn expertise for years. A big voice in the marketing world, she got her badge removed. One that I didn't really think made sense. Whereas other ones, I think LinkedIn does a good job at being a bit more selective and giving more power to the badge.
Yeah, and I think like it was a necessary correction. Like they had overstretched with the LinkedIn Top Voice badges. There were a lot of people with them, and they started to lose a bit of meaning. I think something that was really interesting, you touched on it right at the start there, Danny, was how what you saw mostly was the creators. And I think when people talk about creators on LinkedIn, a lot of people are thinking about the kind of industry gurus, the LinkedIn gurus, the personal branding experts. And if you look amongst them, like they had a lot of Top Voice badges. And I think you could look at it in two different ways. One is the reason we heard from them a sort of survivor's bias. Like their whole brand themselves is that they post on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a huge part of what they do. Is the reason that everyone saw posts from them complaining about it because they are the loud voices? Or is it because LinkedIn is trying to use that Top Voice badge to create a kind of like authority and show who is the expert in their industry, who's the leader in their industry? And if like, what we're doing at Shake and what any of those personal branding agencies are doing is becoming an industry, you can't have every single person who's running a company in that space having a Top Voice badge. You look at some like more obscure industries, you find one or two people who are the industry spokesperson, they have a Top Voice. And that makes sense. And if you have, if LinkedIn marketing becomes its own industry, you can't have 30 Top Voices because it sort of loses its meaning. You don't know who the spokesperson really is.
I agree, but I also think, playing devil's advocate, there is the other side that, to give you an example, let's say you're the biggest expert when it comes to creating YouTube thumbnails, very niche, and that person shares their expertise on LinkedIn on how to create YouTube thumbnails, the process, the design, the videos. I don't think LinkedIn will give the badge to that person, even though, in my opinion, he or she is probably the top voice on YouTube thumbnails. So that's where LinkedIn has to be a bit more transparent on what expertise means, what content are they really looking to reward, and that's where I think the frustration comes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the biggest thing here is just all about communication. There didn't seem to be any explanation whatsoever to people, rightly or wrongly, depending on it's our opinion, right? Like whether if we looked at 10 profiles and thought they should or shouldn't have a top voice, which feels pretty much the same process that LinkedIn had as well, we might have differing opinions to the team there who made that decision. But there just was no comms at all about it.
And that's key.
Well, and even one of the pieces of comms I did see was an outdated email that had been sent out that referenced community articles, which have been out of LinkedIn's plan for a year by this point. So, it said like part of being a Top Voice badge is you're a regular contributor to these articles.
Yeah.
But people don't contribute to those articles anymore because LinkedIn deprioritized them and moved them off the platform.
We had different badges over the years, right? And maybe it feels like it's been rolling back for a while now. We used to have the orange community badge, right? I think that's maybe what it's missing is some sort of criteria of maybe just broaden it out from just top voice. You could have global voice where you have these Richard Bransons, which are maybe household names. They're authors, they're super successful entrepreneurs, business people, philanthropists, depending on what it is that hits that criteria. But then you maybe have your industry expert, right? So industry expert top voice, where it's a big enough industry that they deserve, I suppose, to have that top voice, but it's niche enough that you're just that number one authority in your space. You are going to a trade show of 1,000 attendees, and you are the person that people are going, Joe, Jane, or Harry. You're the person that people are trying to walk up to and maybe take pictures from because you've been in the industry for 10 years, and you're the one that they look to on LinkedIn to digest that content. And maybe you might have another one, like a mission top voice. They're a sustainability expert, or maybe broader than their contribution to a specific industry, or I suppose the sustainability industry is its own industry now. But I agree, maybe digressing a little bit earlier, where you talk about LinkedIn marketing as a whole, there's no barrier to entry with LinkedIn marketing. Everyone thinks they're an expert, and even those that have rode that wave and maybe even been a part of those engagement pods that LinkedIn is so desperately trying to remove because it's all about trust, right? And I think every marketeer that potentially is listening to this podcast, they know that trust is the currency we're all living in for 2026. So how how does LinkedIn become more credible? They've done verifications and other things like that, where it's a number that, you know, the CEO of LinkedIn and a number of the other authorities at LinkedIn itself are coming out and saying, we have X amount of the platform verifying their identity, so it's trusted real voices. I mean, yeah, I'm not a big fan of inputting my ID and passport into social media platforms, because that's somebody else who, you know, data breaches or whatever. We all have that, you know, insecurity about it. But at the same time, I completely understand, like, that's the direction that LinkedIn wants to take it.
I was going on a tangent yesterday. I wanted to ask you guys, was doing some research. How many top voices do you think there are worldwide? There are not specific numbers, but there's some research and there's some estimations.
Well, they have active, like,
yeah,
LinkedIn
they have that
badges.
I don't know. When you look at my feed, you say 10,000. There's like, they seem to be everywhere.
I would say I follow a lot of top voices because of the industry we're in. So I'm going to say it's less. I'm going to say 10% of that. I'm going to 1,000.
I saw that there's around 5 to 10,000, which sounds like a lot. But if you think about it, I believe there's 1+ billion members on LinkedIn.
True.
So if that's the case, and I'm reading my notes here, there are only 0.001% of members are top voices, which is insane. And some cool facts for the audience. It is easier to be a billionaire. It is easier to be struck by lightning. And it is easier to be 100 years old than becoming a top voice. I'm not saying I agree. I'd rather be a billionaire than being a top voice. But it just shows you, I guess, how selective is LinkedIn on this, even though it doesn't feel like it. But I thought there was some cool stats for us to use.
Well, I definitely don't want to be struck by lightning over the other two. So yeah, you know, that sounds good to me.
But I think it was a good way to end this section on this note.
Shall we move on to the next topic?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
LLMs. We all use them. So which is yours? My question to you on LinkedIn. So you guys are responsible for hundreds of posts per week through the work we do at Shake. I know that everyone is going to be so shocked that we do use LLMs.
What's that?
Exactly. It's this thing called large language models, Danny. But you may have heard of it in another term. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, you heard of them?
That rings a bell.
Rings a bell.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to dive into the complexities of content that we're seeing. There's a lot of AI slop on there. And it's not actually kind of the topic I want to bring up right now. I'm sure we'll discuss it at some point. The sort of TLDR of that is, yes, use AI in your content. Don't use it end to end. Make sure there's tons of personality your editorial in it. But that's not why I'm going into it. Which ones do you use?
ChatGPT. I think. Did anyone look at their ChatGPT roundup of the year?
No.
But there was a. I didn't see anyone talking about it, but there was like a LinkedIn roundup or like a Spotify rap type thing for ChatGPT.
Yes.
And apparently, I'm in the top 10% of prompters on ChatGPT. So do with that information what you will.
Did you get any badge?
Sadly not.
No badge, but talking about Roundup, Catalyst?
I was a Catalyst.
Yeah, me too.
And,
good to see LinkedIn doing a wrap up at the end of last year.
Was anyone not a Catalyst?
I actually don't know what the other ones were. I didn't see a single person without Catalyst.
I also think everyone was on LinkedIn for about 345 days of the year, and it seemed to be about 90% of users had been on that frequently.
And I was the most connected person with a bunch of people, many who made sense, others that I've never really engaged with.
I think you were the only person that had because it was sort of judged between, we worked it out between January 1st and the day it was released in December. And I think you were on LinkedIn every single day bar one, while most people were.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I love LinkedIn.
Committed to the game.
Committed to the LinkedIn game,
Committed.
Right? So moving back to LLMs. So what I really want to talk about was AEO. So answer engine optimization. So this is the hottest topic for any marketer. Like you guys know, I'm a former sort of growth marketer. I absolutely love diving back into that world. And it's a huge priority for us at Shake this year is how we are appearing on LLMs. And what I think came up this month was the appearance of LinkedIn. Historically quite closed APIs, not so much sort of information and data you'd see being pulled from the internet for LinkedIn, but quite the opposite. Outside of Reddit, it was the highest performing social media or place to get
Huge.
cited by LLMs. It was a study by SEMrush. I've got the stats here, which is insane. So the study by SEMrush looked at over 230,000 AI prompts and 100 million citation. Showed LinkedIn as the second most cited domain by LLMs after Reddit. That means AI isn't just reading LinkedIn, but it's pulling answers from it. Now, I think it's fascinating. I think it's absolutely fascinating that now, obviously we are, of course, encouraging more businesses to be posting authentic, amazing, incredible insights on LinkedIn. But now it's sort of killing two birds with one stone with the other probably priority objective for any marketeer out there, which is, I don't know if we're seeing the death of SEO. I don't want to go and get all the haters to say that. I don't believe that either, but we're definitely seeing a huge move into AEO. It's only one letter difference, but it's a huge difference.
Yeah, and it's happened quickly. So if you go back to November, well, compare November versus January this year, the AIs and LLMs are being referenced 4 to 5 times more than they were in November. So it's a huge uptake. You see the graphs and sort of trickling along at a kind of steady level for most of last year, and all of a sudden shoot up at the start of the year. But what I think is really interesting is where exactly on LinkedIn they're pulling the information from. And from a study that Spotlight did, it's coming 80% from Pulse articles, so they're kind of LinkedIn blog content, which
articles,
which had a moment like, I don't know, 10 years ago, was it? 6 years ago? People were losing their minds over them. Everyone started publishing LinkedIn articles, and then they died off, and now they're back again.
Yeah. I mean, formerly called Pulse. Now they're just articles. So if anyone's listening and getting confused about where they find Pulse and whatever,
I showing my age.
Showing your age there, mate. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I've got those stats. So that Spotlight study in Q4 last year cited that LinkedIn was 4.2 times more likely to appear on ChatGPT, Perplexity 5.7 times more. I'll bring up a graph on screen now for the audience who are watching on YouTube. The average across all LLMs is about 4 to 5 times the usual rate. So it was 19,202 LinkedIn sources cited. And I did have a question here for you, but you've put the stat there. Yeah, 78% of the total of those 19,000 LinkedIn sources cited, over 15,000 of them coming from LinkedIn articles, which is incredible. So, I think anyone hearing that is swap out one of those or two of those LinkedIn posts to get writing your articles, right? At the moment, it's clearly what's working.
Well, but there's also another kind of sub point to that, which is not all LinkedIn articles are created equal. So the way that these LLMs are using LinkedIn at the moment is they are weighting references based on the credibility of the person who's providing it. So it's looking at industry, expertise, experience, career history, all of that information that's readily available in your LinkedIn profile, education as well. Connections, yeah, absolutely. And it's looking at all of that and using that to decide whether you're a credible source or not. So there's like a weird kind of resurgence in the importance of having an accurate, up-to-date, well-informed, information-heavy LinkedIn page.
Yeah, I mean, so I really summarize this sort of section or this theme as we're going from a world of search and click to a place of ask and trust. And I think this is such a big difference, is that not only are people, of course, going on and typing in prompts to your LLMs, right? The LLMs are trying to do the job for you of sourcing who you can trust and where you can trust as well. And I think they've clearly identified as a lot of this data and information is on LinkedIn, among other platforms, sure. But I think it's great to see that for the industry and for the platform of LinkedIn. So yeah, super interesting. I actually was on a panel a couple of weeks ago now around AEO, and what's fascinating to see is how we're not just going from copywritten word, we're going further and saying, okay, how does this look on video? And, everyone, I mean, come on, last 12 months, everyone's been saying, is video going to get me more engagement? Is it better for me? Is it not better for me? Oh, but, my video's been tanked, and when I do an image, it's been so great. Pass me the phone so I can do a selfie, right? What is clear is that AEO, these large language models, are looking at video for like the narrative of the video, the confidence that you put it across, and measuring tone and everything. I mean, the capabilities of these
And
AI
they're the
now.
worst they've ever been. These models, they're the worst they've ever been. They're only going to continue getting better,
100%.
which is a bit scary.
The rise of the importance for LinkedIn when it comes to AEO is just another string to the bow of LinkedIn marketing, right? So we've been speaking for a little while now, and coincidentally put out a post literally this morning about it, saying how in 2 to 5 years it's going to be as common to have a LinkedIn marketing agency as it is to have a Google agency at the moment. And you know, LinkedIn is now currently ticking off everything that Google used to tick off. So we've got, you know, AEO, equivalent to sort of SEO stuff. You've got organic content, you've got long form content, you have video, you have webinars. It's becoming quite a holistic marketing channel. I think it's going to be, you see 2 to 5 years, it's going to be a very different landscape. I think it'll be in the way you currently have, you know, events, PR, whatever else is part of your B2B marketing strategy, LinkedIn will be one of those core pillars, and it will be a bit more holistic.
And I'm speaking with clients, I'm sure you are as well, or prospects. And whenever we bring this up, it changes the conversation. And I think we're just in the first innings. And I think we're just scratching the surface. So yeah, I'm super excited to see how this, develops.
Well, let's not give away all of our sales tactics,
No.
Danny. But yeah, I agree. It's super fascinating to see where this is going to go. I think also take a trip down memory lane, right? 5 years ago, LinkedIn was a place of PR comms, PR releases, and that was about it. I mean, Danny, your job at LinkedIn was literally to bring on creators to make it the platform it is today. So all that AI stuff is completely your fault. Anyway, enough about AI. So, we're talking about what's real and what's not. And so let's go into the next section, what's hot and what's not.
Yeah, love it. So, aim of this section, I'll tell you what, I'm sweating. The aim of this section is we're going to talk about the things that are in this month and the things that are out this month on LinkedIn. Let's start with the bad. So the things that are going out, hook templates. Jesus
Amen.
Christ. Let's do away with 30 hook templates you can use in your content strategy. Let's do away with 8 words in the opening line. Let's do away with the rehooks. They're all too over-engineered. They're overused, and they're not human. And I think people don't write or speak in the way that these hook templates are structured, and they were built for a LinkedIn that was designed differently, an algorithm that was designed differently. That sort of gave you a lot of attention, likes, and impressions just for sort of being on the platform. And so a hook was maybe a differentiator. Now, what people are looking for is a human connection and real value. And I just don't think you get that from those hook templates. So
I mean, you've just ruined about 100 creators I see on a very regular basis talking about their cohorts and their community that they're selling these templates into. But yeah, completely agree.
Sorry.
Completely agree. That is
Class one.
That is what's out this month for sure.
Nice. And let's talk about what's in. So this is the great stuff that's happening on LinkedIn at the moment. I think a pretty obvious one is entertaining content. I think entertainment content is huge on LinkedIn at the moment. You can see so many brands and individuals who are absolutely killing it. But specifically, I'm talking about entertainment content with a long tail. So the example I picked out for this is Henry Hayes and Ian McKenzie.
Shout out to Henry and Ian.
Absolutely.
Friends of the pod.
Yeah, friends of the pod.
Friends of the pod. I mean, their work is awesome.
I always wanted to say that.
Yeah, fantastic. They, I'm sure everyone has seen their content by now. The Batman Joker scene came out yesterday. It's fantastic.
I would love to know how much time Henry spent in makeup on that one.
Yeah, no, it's awesome work. It's really, really cool stuff. But one of the things that I'm loving about it is not only are they capitalizing on the moment and going big with these huge viral trends, they're then drawing out the long tail of it. So I think within maybe 12 hours, certainly within 24 hours, they'd put out, I think Ian put out a little behind the scenes type clip with Henry asking him about the secret to storytelling, and it's all a bit of a laugh, and it's really well done. It takes that moment, you've captured the eyeballs, and draws it out for a bit longer. It means you get a bit more attention over a longer period of time. And it's one thing to see Henry and Ian doing it with their own content when they're the ones kind of garnering the massive impressions. But the person who's been really impressing me at the moment is Jack Wellham, who's their videographer. So their videographer is now posting almost like behind the scenes, where he's going into how do we film this? How do we do this? How do we structure that? How do we sort the colors on this video. How do we do this edit? How do we create this effect? And it's really great content. His personal brand, I can't say I'd seen much of him up until maybe a couple of months ago, but since then he's coming up a lot on my feed. Really informative, really interesting, and again, it draws that long tail out in the content. So that's what's in this month.
Yeah, agreed.
Great shout.
Great shout. I think also is that it's looking at what that hero piece can become. So it's a long piece of content or a longer piece of content. It doesn't need to be that 1 to 2 minutes like short form content that everyone sort of has tried to bring over from your TikToks and your Instagram. And that still works. Like, people do digest content in the same way, whatever social media you're on, whatever time of the day it is, pretty much. Although when I'm in bed scrolling through Instagram, I'm probably doing it a bit quicker than I would be during the day on LinkedIn. But as you say, it's then that second bit explaining how it's done, explaining why they do it, and then you can follow up with authority pieces, more like what we would call middle of the funnel content, saying why it's important for the art of storytelling and how that's achieved, how top tips from them who are doing it so well, and seeing how others can learn from them. Most people who I respect and see on LinkedIn right now are saying your content has to do one of two things: it's educational or it's entertaining, and this does both. You might have the entertaining bit as your sort of, let's say, viral piece. Not every piece of content has to go viral, of course, but this piece that is quite entertaining. But then they could produce 10 plus videos off the back of it, and some could be Henry with no makeup on. You might not even recognize him if you've only sort of seen him in the Joker seat, sort of as the first piece of video you've seen from him. But he's then talking about everything, and it leads right down to bottom of the funnel, like why they should engage with the business that he's a part of. I think it explains it so well.
That I think
and it comes through. It comes through that he's having fun.
It comes through, and also something that I think it's in my opinion. Of course, Henry and Ian, I think they're taking it to the next level. Huge shout out to them. But I'm seeing even more just text-based short posts that are funny, that are a bit more irreverent. LinkedIn doesn't have to be the most serious place. Of course, there's always that connection to work and the professional element, and I think that has to be that has to stay. But I want to lean into that more as well. Like, it's not easy to be funny, but if you're funny and you're poking the finger in your own industry, I think that really shows that you know the industry. So I'm seeing more of that. I'm a big fan. I'm seeing content also getting rewarded a bit more, and I'm enjoying it.
I love that coming from a man who absolutely rage baited his followers this morning by giving the secret to going viral on LinkedIn, and then shared absolutely no valuable advice.
And I didn't go viral.
Danny, you are looking a little warm, and that says a lot from a man from South America. Do you have a hot take for us this week?
I am feeling hot. I'm happy to share my hot take of the week. And the hot take of the week, at least in my opinion, I've always had an issue with the open to work badge or banner. It doesn't really reflect or gives you the best possibility to be hired. I think LinkedIn could do a better job at, even designing it a bit better. So I think it looks a bit desperate, in my opinion. I wouldn't put it unless I have already used all of my, levers. I know other people have a different opinion. We'd love to hear yours, but I don't think it helps your chances of getting your next job, which is a bit ironic, if you ask me.
It's your hot take.
It's a bit hot. Huh?
I mean, spicy take.
Spicy quesadilla.
Look, tough one. I get exactly where you're coming from. I would argue is that, what's the other? What is the solution for that? Like, for contractors and freelancers, I think it works perfectly. You're basically saying there's free slots available to work with me. For a full-time position, I guess the only negative potentially to it that is really apparent is if you're applying. I think one of the biggest issues I have with it is that if a hirer, an employer, is going proactive to the market and trying to find work, one is they can find them significantly easier, but two, does it make them look into their CV a little bit more of like why they're open to work? I think in the reality is hopefully if they leverage their profile well enough to put their experience and education in the right way, then I think it's a positive. I think it's a plus. I understand what you're saying. It can look a bit odd.
It's the equivalent if you're talking about food. It just looks like a plain bread. Like, it doesn't look very appealing. Imagine that bread.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I know what you mean.
Again.
The thing I always wonder about this open to work badge is like, who's spotting that and then taking action, right? So it kind of makes sense if you have a big brand and a lot of followers and you go like, oh, I'm open to work, and it's like, oh wow, this person's available, I'd love to reach out to them.
Yeah.
But if you're, I don't mean this in an offensive way at all, but if you're relatively unknown, like you have a few hundred connections maybe, you don't really post on LinkedIn. Yeah. If you switch to an open to work banner and then do nothing with that, no one's ever going to know. Like no one's. If you're not posting, people aren't seeing you, people aren't seeking you out, then having an open to work banner becomes redundant anyway.
Yeah, but how does LinkedIn actually use that on like the platform end? Like, I would say 99% of cases, the standard business, or let's say the atypical business, puts a job advert up. They might even pay for, let's say, LinkedIn jobs, sponsor it for a bit, because you get limited with the amount of applicants you can receive, and then people are applying. So that's proactiveness. And then as a hiring manager, do you look at it as a positive or negative? I think the negative is kind of where it's a case of, okay, why are you out of work?
Yeah.
But the positive is you can start straight away. So it's probably depending on your view on that one. But then the other side of that is proactive from the employer side, because that's kind of where LinkedIn pushes it. It's saying you can easily be found. You can easily be found because you're open to work.
I think what LinkedIn should do, and I think they do this with something similar, where when you want to signal that you're looking for new opportunities, and you can kind of choose that to be visible to everyone or to only recruiters. I think there could be a world where that profile banner is only shown to specific people, and I don't think that's too hard to make.
Yeah, but dangerous game, right?
Not to recruiters, but I don't think like the average or the world out there need to necessarily see that, oh, this person is unemployed. I think the optics, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing, doesn't work in your favor. So I think that's just a suggestion potentially to the product team. Shout out to my friends at the product team. Just a thought.
Well, look, let's leave that shout out to the product team and see if they pick up on your grand idea. But I think that's a wrap. I think for January 2026, we've covered a good amount of topics. And once again, if we get cancelled, we can just blame it on the algorithm.
And we'll be back next month with some spicy takes and some
back for therapy.
Back for therapy.
Okay, therapy sessions closed until 30 days time.
Nice. Quite enjoy this.